Greetings. Welcome to the Vedic Perspective. I'm your host, Ralph Lorino. It's Saturday, December 18, 2010, and I'd like to welcome everyone to the show today. And thank you so much for listening, whether you're listening live or whether you'll be listening later on in the archive. One thing I've mentioned before is that I feel like the state of the alternative research, alternative history, and the entire alternative knowledge community has fallen into a dilapidated condition. On the one hand, we have the people like Alex Jones who are spreading fear high and low and to every corner, where we've discussed before on the show that fear-mongering and keeping people in a perpetual state of fear is not an elevated state of consciousness, and neither can you acquire an elevated state of consciousness by being put into an animalistic state of fear. So there's the Alex Jones wing and all the different clones that have followed along with him with the different fear-mongering. Then we get into the more esoteric type people, and in that community there's a lot of misinformation. There's a lot of control mechanisms being used to give people misinformation, to keep them in darkness. There's no standard knowledge, or people don't ever put forth where exactly the knowledge has come from. Is it coming from their own personal realizations? Are they gathering knowledge from different ancient wisdom systems and then utilizing that to suit their purpose? And that's an important point. So I'm trying to distinguish this show from the other shows in that we can ask ourselves ultimately whether we listen, whatever alternative media that we've been taking into our consciousness, what is the ultimate goal of all of this? Whether it's listening to someone like Alex Jones or the more esoteric researchers, what is the ultimate purpose? Even if I come to realize that different things about the control mechanisms of the society, if I come to realize different things about the ancient past, what is the ultimate goal of understanding and imbibing all this knowledge? So I'd like to put forth the mission statement of the Vedic perspective so that it's clear that as we go through these discussions, that this isn't for some unknown or unrealizable purpose, that there's a clear purpose to the show and there's a clear meaning to the show. So I'm going to go ahead and give you the mission statement. The Vedic civilization's destination is to go back to Godhead, back home, where there is no birth, no death, no old age, and no disease. The Vedas direct everyone not to remain in the darkness of the material world, but to go towards the light of the spiritual kingdom far beyond the material sky. So, within this mission statement, there's a lot of aspects to it. First of all, the point is that this knowledge is coming from the Vedic civilization. So one may ask, what is the Vedic civilization? To explain this, we have to understand that there are different cycles or yugas of time. The first being Satya Yuga, then Treta Yuga, then Dwarpa Yuga, then the Yuga in which we currently reside, the Kali Yuga, which began 5,000 years ago, which is described as the age of iron, or the age of hypocrisy and quarrel. So it's important to understand which period we are in the cycles of time, because this will tint all of the different aspects, whether it be philosophical, sociological, political, religious, themes of the time. For example, in the Kali Yuga, there is a great degradation of spiritual principles. There is a great degradation in political principles. There's a great movement away from understanding higher authorities and higher principles that have given us various ancient wisdom systems from around the world. And as we can see, this is happening in modern society. There's so much corruption, different problems that arise within the society, whether they be economic, political, sociological. There's always disturbance by war. There's always disturbance by disease. There's always disturbance by so many upheavals within the society. The images that are broadcast to the mass of people are not for their upliftment. Rather, it's for their degradation, to keep them in a state of lower consciousness so that they can never realize and fulfill their higher purposes. So we can see different proofs that the Vedic statement that we are entering into for the past 5,000 years, the age of Kali. Of course, one of the secrets and important secrets of the Vedas is that within this age of Kali, there resides a mini golden age, which began 500 years ago with the advent of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the great Indian saint and mystic, and by understanding and carrying out his different teachings about spiritual consciousness and spiritual life, that there can be a renaissance even within this age. But for now, we're going to stick with the idea that we are residing within the age of Kali, that this has tainted all the different outlooks that have been presented to us, and that it is not for our spiritual upliftment, and it's for our spiritual degradation. So if we are going to reside within the golden age of Kali Yuga, the mini golden age, it's primarily a change of heart or a change of consciousness. There isn't a place that we can go to or a ritualistic formula that we can follow. Rather, it requires a change of heart and a change of consciousness. So that's one important point, that there is a Vedic civilization, that this civilization has been existing since time immemorial. It's existed throughout all the yugas, which one yuga cycle comprises 4,3,000,000 years. So the yuga cycles are quite long, and it is stated in the Vedic literatures that throughout all the different yuga cycles that there is perfected. Actually, this is the most degraded of all the ages. In the first age, the Satya Yuga, the Vedic civilization is very strong. There's many great saints, mystics, yogis. People are endowed with incredible powers, which today we see these powers are trying to be made up for in the different technological advances that we see. For example, the idea of television, that we can see a distant place. Remotely. So in the past, the people had this yogic power or this yogic siddhi that they could see to distant places in their heart. It didn't require any television or any mechanical device. Another example is the computer, which is kind of a supplement to the mind, so that we can also talk with people in far distant places. We can understand vast amounts of knowledge. All these things were accessible for just by using the human body and the human mind in its perfected form in the previous ages. So these things are going on. The next point is that there is a purpose to all this, and that's to go back to Godhead, back home, where there is no birth, no death, no old age, and no disease. So it has to be admitted that although currently we're very proud of our materialistic civilization, and even though all the signposts show that there's a great amount of degradation and a great amount of problems, that everyone still has to face the problems of birth, death, old age, and disease. And actually these problems are actually increasing as we progress through this age. But this Vedic literature speaks of a place where these problems of life, the birth, death, old age, and disease, no longer exist, which is a very important point, because this gets into the idea of cosmology and how we view the earth. Now, cosmology is a very important aspect of research, because it's kind of the point where all, let's say, many of the disciplines, such as science, metaphysics, history, philosophy, they all meet in cosmology. So it's important to the idea to understand the cosmology that we've been given in the age of Kali as the standard outlook, and then perhaps explore some of the ancient systems of cosmology. So the Vedas direct everyone not to remain in the darkness of the material world, but to go to the light of the spiritual kingdom far beyond the material sky. again, this gets back to cosmology in the sense that what we've been given in the paradigm that we live in right now is basically that there is just one world, the material world, the world that is illuminated by the sun, the moon, the stars, and the other objects, and that there is that this is kind of a vast, infinite, unending situation or scene, and that there is nothing beyond that, and that everything is contained within this world of darkness that needs to be illuminated by various objects. But one of the primary principles of the Vedic knowledge is that there is a world beyond the material world, where it's all light, where it's all knowledge, where it's all bliss, where it's free from anxiety. It's a world of persons and personal form, where we don't just merge our individuality into the undefined light of eternity, but rather we retain our personal form to have various relationships with other perfected beings in our state of full glory, full power, full light, full transcendence. So I think it's important, or what I'd like to do today, because it's something that interests me, and I think that it's interesting to other people as well, is to understand how the cosmology that we've been given today is actually hell-bent on keeping us in darkness, how it's nothing more, it can't even be called a creation mythology, it's more of a creation superstition that is the lowest form of knowledge, that it has no backing, that is something that has come about very recently, that there isn't any evidence or proof that really substantiates it. It's nothing more than a half-baked religious dogma that has been forced onto people. And I realize that my audience is a little bit different, that people are more open-minded and have been exploring various alternatives to the what's been given to us as the cosmological situation. But I think it's important for us to know and to understand what exactly is out there, what exactly people have been taught, what exactly we've been taught, and perhaps some of the remnants of this teaching that reside still within us that need to be purged from our system. So the first thing I'd like to mention when we talk about cosmology is that all the cosmology that has been given to us today is based on the inductive system of reasoning. Induction means that you start with observation, then you create a tentative hypothesis, then the hypothesis is proven through experimentation, and then ultimately you come out with a theory. For example, right now, the theory of the Big Bang is the primary cosmological theory that is given to people, and it is quite prevalent. It's kind of like the theory of evolution in one sense, that in many circles, and even sometimes we see this in politics, that if a politician comes out and says that they don't believe in the theory of evolution, they are just like raked across the coals, and that it is taken that this person is some kind of backward religious fanatic, and that there's no hope for them, and that anyone who would not believe in the theory of evolution is some kind of ignorant fool, when really, according to Karl Popper and his work, where a theory can't even be considered to be scientific if it can never be proven to be false, that the theory of evolution and the theory of the Big Bang aren't even scientific theories, because there's no way to prove them false in one sense, because they deal with events that happened so far in the distant past. So what is taken to be science, as we can see through the idea of the age of Kali, what is taken to be truth is actually falsehood, whereas in previous ages, the truth was the truth, and falsity was falsity. Now in this age, in the age of Kali, everything is turned upside down, where falsity is considered to be truth, and truth is considered to be falsity. So we can see that this goes along with the current of the ages that have been explained in the Vedas.